It's Jen with Astrology. Welcome back to the channel. Today we're going to be talking about electional charts. So what an electional chart is, it's a chart that is for something, for an event. So it could be for, say, a wedding, starting a business, elective surgery, trying to get pregnant. So what it is you're trying to find a chart that's going to have the best outcome, the best aspects, and pretty much kind of match what you're trying to do and what's going to give you the most positivity towards this, so that it, if it's for marriage, it'll be a lasting marriage. If it's for business, it's going to be a lucrative business, and so on. So today we are going to talk about a marriage chart. So right now, in my everyday work, I work for a limousine company, and I know that this time of year it's all about weddings. Everything is wedding related, and things have been booked out with us for a couple years now. Ever since COVID, people are really getting a jump start. People are coming back from having to put things off, so they're really jumping at it. So our weekends are booked solids. Our stretches are out. So this chart is for a client of mine who, they got engaged a couple of years ago, about a year and 9 months, and they picked a date, or they picked a roundabout date as to when they wanted to get married. So, if you've ever gotten married, sometimes finding a venue on the exact date that you want can be difficult. So they looked around, they found a venue that they loved, they found a date that was around the time that they wanted to get married, and so they got their slot. So pretty much they are getting married on on June 24th, and it's going to be at about 5 p.m. So what you do, so they wanted to have me look and see if it looked like it was a positive time to get married, if they would have a long-standing wedding. So we're going to take a look at it together, and I'll kind of explain what you want to look for in one of these charts and if theirs looks good. So let's get started. So first, what you want to do is you want to run a chart as you would run a birth chart. So if you even go on astro.com, you can easily do it that way. It's a little harder to tweak and change the date because you're going out and going in, but you can still, all you need to have is, of course, the place that you're getting married, that's the town, and you need the time and the date, of course. So that's what I did here. I ran this chart for the date, time, and place that where they booked the wedding. So you want, again, the chart to kind of look like what you're doing. So you want, for a marriage chart, you want your 7th house to be kind of happy and have good aspects in it. You want it to have good planets in it. Where if it's like starting a business, you want your 10th house. So you want to run this chart, see how it looks. We're going to go through, I have my notes over here, and we're going to try it step by step and see how it looks. You also, when you're done running this chart and kind of doing a reading on their election date chart, you're going to want to compare all these transits to their personal charts, their natal charts, to see if it also looks good for that. So what you want to do first is you want to, so this is for a wedding, so you want to check the ascendant, and the ascendant is going to stand for the actual thing taking place. So their ascendant is in Scorpio. So that represents the actual wedding itself. So you want to look at the ruler of the ascendant. The ruler of the ascendant is Scorpio, so it's Mars. So you want to look at where Mars is, make sure that it's in a good placement. So you don't want it in its debility, you don't want it in fall, you want it in a good placement. So they have theirs in the 10th house of, and that's in Leo. So that makes me feel like it's a positive aspect. 10th house could have to do with, things that you're moving towards in life, that a lot of times it has to do with career, reputation, but it's also just something that you have grown towards. That is the highest point in your chart. So the 10th house represents, the highest point, where the fourth house represents the lowest point. So having Mars on one of the angles, which is the first, fourth, seventh, and 10th, is a good sign. So we're pleased by that. So starting off pretty well. So then we want to look at the moon. So you want to make sure again, and also Mars is not in its stability or anything. So if it was in, say, Taurus, if it was in, say, let's see, in Libra, it wouldn't be happy, and that wouldn't be a good placement. So we might want to look at that. So then we want to look at the moon. So now the moon is in the 11th house in this chart, and which is groups, and so you're getting a group together. They're having a big wedding with all their family and friends coming. That's in Virgo. It's not in its stability or anything. So what you also want to look for is that it's making good aspects. You don't want it to be making a bad aspect. And you don't want these planets to be in what we call bad houses. So first of all, if we look at the houses, the bad houses are considered the 2nd, the 6th, the 8th, and the 12th. That's because these houses are kind of, they're out of aspect with the ascendant. So you have the 12th and the 2nd, it's really hard for them to see. It's kind of like the unaspected. And then the 6th, which is normally kind of more of a health related house. And then we have the 8th, which is always kind of has that taboo about it. So those are the negative houses. So we don't have anything in those houses, which is a good thing. Those houses are pretty clear of any of the things we're looking for in this chart. So again, we have the moon up here, and we want to check what aspects it's making. So one thing, because this is a day chart, and you know that because the sun is up on the top half of the chart. So the major benefic, or the most helpful planet in this chart, is Jupiter. So you also want to see where Jupiter is, and if the moon is making a good aspect to Jupiter. So if you look here, here's the moon. I know it's hard to see, but that's why I'm explaining as I'm going. The moon is in a trine with Jupiter. That means it's 1, 2, 3, 4 signs apart. So if it was 90 degrees, that would be a square. That's what we wouldn't like, but it's at about 120 degrees. It's a kind of a wide square. It's about 9 degrees, which is a little bit wide, but not a wide square, a wide trine. It has a big orb to it, so we're still going to use it. It's still positive. It doesn't make it any more negative. So again, that's very good. So then you also want to look at so what else it's making aspects to. So the one thing I see in this chart that would kind of concern me a little bit is, so you want to concentrate here on their 7th house. So they're getting married. So what's in the 7th house for them is, or for their election chart, is Uranus, Jupiter, and the North Node. So Jupiter in the 7th house, that is a fantastic sign. It's, in a good placement. It's in Taurus. Taurus is a fixed sign, and the ascendant is also in a fixed sign. So when you have the ascendant and the 7th house in a fixed sign, that means, longevity. That means it's going to be a long-standing relationship. So you really want to have, for a wedding, you want to have your ascendant in one of the fixed houses. That's a really good sign. So far, so good. So also the North Node. So the North Node is about something that you've always wanted, something that, you feel like you need in this life and that you're going to go for in this life. So having the North Node there almost makes me feel like what they both want so much in life is to be married and to be with, hopefully each other forever. So it's right, in a close, not super close conjunction, but it's kind of a wider orb conjunction with Jupiter. So I feel like that's very positive. So I feel like the love is abundant, and the love for each other they have is abundant, and everything else. The only thing that always worried me was the Uranus being in there. So Uranus is that you just don't know what it's going to do. It's that electric, sends a little lightning bolt, could change things. So that we're going to kind of put a pin in for now. We're going to come back to that. So you also want to avoid of course, moon. So this moon looks good. It's in the center. You know if it's a void of course moon because it would be changing signs. So it's right in the middle of this sign, so it's in a good placement. We're safe with that. You also want to avoid the ascendant, the moon, or your personal planets at any critical degrees. Now the critical degrees are in the first three or the first degree and the last degree mainly. But I also would suggest that if your ascendant was in the first 3 degrees, that's usually a bit early. So maybe if, you could bump it a little bit so that, say at 4 o'clock, your ascendant was in the 2nd degree. If you bump it maybe till 5 o'clock or so, that would put it maybe in one of the later degrees, like 5 or 6. That would be better because, that is showing in the first 3 degrees that it might be a little bit early. If it's actually happening in the last 3 degrees, so the 27, 28, 29, that might be a little bit too late. So you might want to make that a little bit earlier. So say again, if the planned wedding was at 6, and it was in the late degrees, the ascendant was in the late degrees of its sign, you might want to back it up a little bit and try and move it to 5. So this one ends up being at 5. Ascendant's right at 20 degrees, so it looks pretty good to me. The other thing you want to look at is you won't want to have any retrogrades of the personal planets. So that means you don't want Mercury in retrograde, you don't want Venus in retrograde, and you don't want Mars in retrograde. And none of these are actually on this date. None of them are in retrograde. Mercury just got out of retrograde, so they're safe going there. So you also, because this is a love chart, even if it was a money chart or a business starting chart, you'd want to look at the condition of Venus. So let's look at where their Venus is here. So the Venus is in Leo, so it's not in any kind of debility. It's pretty happy there. Leo's all about, having all the attention. So of course you want to have all the attention. So what I like about this also is that in a marriage chart, the woman is represented by either the moon or Venus. It could be both. And then the man would be represented by the sun or Mars. Now, if this is a same-sex marriage, you still have one partner that might be on the more Marsy side and one that might be on the more Venusian side. So you can still kind of fit, even if it's a same-sex marriage, into a chart and read it the exact same way. It doesn't make a difference. But this is for a man and a woman that are getting married. So we see that both of so we have the Mars and Venus both together in Leo. So of course all eyes on them. Everything's revolving around them. Also, they're in a close conjunction, which is great. So they're within 4. Venus is at 16 and Mars is at 20. So they're in a close conjunction with each other, within 4 degrees, in a happy sign. So I feel like that's a really good sign also that this is going to be a good marriage. So then when we have the The moon is in a good placement. So let's also look over here at the sun, and that has a nice trine going to Saturn. So that's kind of, Saturn can be a malefic. This is a day chart, so the malefic would have been Mars, but since Mars is the ruler of the ascendant, and Mars is all, in mainly positive aspects, we look at this like it's a positive chart. So then, if you look at the sun is making a trine to Saturn. So Saturn, again, it could be a malefic, but in this, it's in a happy place. It's in a place, the fifth house, which is the house of fun, which is in the house of dating. I find it to be kind of a funny placement because Saturn is about contracts and signing contracts. And so it's almost like these two that are dating are now, in the moon is in opposition, and then the sun. So they're both pretty positive aspects. Opposition can kind of go either way sometimes, but maybe it was a little harder for her to jump on board. But knowing her, I don't think so. But so it's almost about like in their dating life, now they're getting serious. Now it's not about dating, they're hunkering down, they're getting married. So I also find that to be positive, even though Saturn can be a malefic. So then the sun, the moon sign, if it's optimal, especially for a wedding, if it's in Taurus, if it's in Cancer, if it's in Libra, that's because they are ruled by Venus, and of course if it's in Cancer, that's ruled by the moon. So it's all about love and relationships. This one is not, it's in Virgo. So maybe in their relationship, they're a little bit particular. But it's not a bad placement. None of these charts are going to be perfect. So there's going to be little, idiosyncrasies in every chart. Nothing's going to be exactly perfect, but that's a good placement. So we're pretty happy with that. Again, so we want to check the malefics and benefics, which we did. Jupiter is our major benefic. It's in a great place. Venus is our secondary, or our lesser benefic. That's in a good placement. Mars is our major malefic, but because it is the ruler, again, of the ascendant, we're not super concerned about that. We also want to keep them out of the bad houses and into the angular houses. So we've pretty much got that down. So we have the two benefics and the malefic in the 10th house. Again, you kind of sometimes will want to hide the malefic, but because it is the ruler of the ascendant, it takes away that negativity from it. And then we have the other benefic in the 7th house, and we have, if we had Saturn in the 4th or in any of the other, that I might kind of look out for, but it's not. It's in a pretty good placement there. So I'm moving on. So trying between the ruler of the 1st and 7th house. So all right, so we want to have our applying aspects are things to come, and our separating aspects, things that have happened. So we have an applying aspect, Venus to Mars. They're coming together. Venus is a faster moving planet. So that's good. Anything bad, you kind of want moving away. So the only kind of negative aspect that I see here is it's a square between Mars and this Uranus. So that square is actually an applying square, because Mars is a faster moving planet. It's at 20, and then we have Uranus at 21. So that is kind of something I'm not thrilled about. So I feel like that could mean something is going to happen on the wedding day, since it is very close aspect. I feel like it's close future. But again, I'm going to get into that in just a couple minutes. So again, everything on this chart so far looks good. You want to have a conjunction or a sextile or trine between the rulers of the first and the seventh house. So we have a conjunction. So the ruler of the first house, Mars. Ruler of the seventh house, Venus. They're conjunct right there. So again, this chart almost couldn't be perfect, or almost couldn't be better, but this darn Uranus in there. So the moon placement, you want that to correspond with what the election is about. It's about a wedding. It's about, you know, being at a party with all your friends and family. It's in the 11th house. So I think that's a great placement for that. That's about family, friends, large groups. So, you know, it's right there. So you also want to look at the, compare again, the 7th house ruler to the natal charts of the two people. But we're just going to finish this up. We're not going to get into that today. We're just pretty much looking at the electional chart. So ultimately, I was worried about the Uranus in there. So in looking at where it falls in, say, the groom's chart. So I see that in his chart, the Uranus is actually in a almost exact trine by 2 degrees with his natal Uranus. So I almost kind of feel and it's also in the groom's 7th house. So sudden change maybe. So just a little kind of thing we just found out is that so the way I kind of looked at it in the groom's chart, ultimately it looked like there was going to be an unexpected guest at the wedding, and that the groom would enjoy this guest, and everything would end up being okay. I'm not going to get into exactly, you know, everything in the groom's chart, but that's how it looked to me. So finding out from this couple is that the unexpected guest just might well be a baby on the way. So they do have a baby on the way. So that's kind of the unexpected and surprise guest that's going to be at the wedding. Also, that is ruled by the 5th house that we also have Saturn in. So not only are we getting married and signing a contract, but we are becoming parents, and, you know, boom. And that is going to be what kind of, you know, grows us up. Saturn is about maturity, and you can't be more mature until you have a baby and are married. That's pretty much, you know, the goal in a lot of people's lives anyway. So that's pretty much the basics on this chart. So I think it's going to be a really great wedding. I think it's going to be really positive, and I think they're going to have a great future, and I really hope so. So I hope you got a little something out of this today. If you have a date coming up that you'd like me to help run an election for, then please contact me, astrotastrology@gmail or astrotastrology.net. And let me know the time, date, and we'll work together and see if it's a good date or if it might need to be tweaked a little bit. So again, I hope you enjoyed this. Make sure you hit the subscribe button, because we're going to be doing another electional chart about another wedding that's coming up, and we're going to see if that one is going to be just as positive. So make sure you hit that little bell to get the notifications of upcoming videos. Hit the subscribe button so you can subscribe and help my channel grow, and you can grow with me, and I think we're going to have a lot of fun. So I hope to see you soon. Have a great week.